Hello, my name is Sarah, and I'm an artistic associate with New York City Children's Theater. I am so excited to be here today, speaking with Melissa, the director of My First Nutcracker, and Barbara, the writer. I would love it. Melissa, why don't you tell us your role on the show?
Sure. I'm so excited to be here, Sarah. Thank you. Um, my role on the show is director and choreographer, which means that as Barbara was writing the play, we were working together to find the flow of the dance and how the dance actually worked in the language of the play, because the play is a ballet. So we had to do both of those things at one time.
Right. Barbara, would you like to speak a little more to your role creating this play?
Yeah, the ballet is one of my favorite things to go to see. But I remember that when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand what was going on all the time because I didn't understand the language. There are all sorts of wonderful moves that the dancers make that indicate what's happening and are part of the story if you really understand what they are. And you do as you get older because you see lots and lots of ballets and you know what's going on. But little kids, not so much. So I thought, well, why don't we do something a little different? Why don't we give them the story in language? Let the dancers tell the story as they're dancing. So that's what you're going to see with our show.
That's wonderful. So, Melissa, how early on in the process did you sign on to do this with Barbara? How much of this was a collaboration at the beginning?
Oh, we this has been a wonderful collaboration. We took quite a lot of time with it. We were able to have um, just a development weekend where we brought three dancers in to just test our ideas and try a couple of scenes and create a full, I think it was a half an hour, Barbara. It's also kind of interesting because at that time we thought we were making the piece for a younger age group, an even younger age group. So, which was a wonderful thing to think because it really let us lean into engaging children and letting them be involved in the storytelling. Um, so when we were first workshopping it, that's where we were really paying attention. We were paying attention to how the dancers would interact with the audience, our tiny audience members, and how they would invite them into the ballet through storytelling. And I feel like Barbara and I spent a couple of months workshopping that idea. And then that workshop was in February that year. And
Mm.
then we kept working through the summer in order to work towards the October, November rehearsal process of what actually became My First Nutcracker. So about a year we worked on this piece.
Yes, I would say that. And we also worked with the music. What music did we want to use? So that informed how we told the story, the music that we wanted to use, because there are some pieces of music that are not used. I think all the iconic music, all the music that you will be so familiar with, we absolutely used. But we had to piece it together in a way that it would flow in a very natural way and make it all work together, even though we weren't using the whole story to tell the whole story, so that the kids would come away knowing the whole story. And then maybe when they were a little bit older, going to see the big ballet with everything in it, they would be absolutely in tune with it and know exactly what was happening and recognize it because we had given them the whole story in 40 minutes.
We basically paid attention to what the landmark elements are of telling the story of the Nutcracker. What are the things that stick with you? Who are the characters that stick with you? What are the elements of the story that stick with you? And I grew up dancing the Nutcracker, and as a ballerina, the Nutcracker was very much a part of my life. That music is a part of my life, and the dances themselves. So thinking about what the elements are of this story that we love and needed to have in order to support our storytelling. And then what children would need to, as Barbara said, have the arc of the story that was so important to us.
Now, what is the name of the main character? We were reading lots of books, and in some of the books, they call her Clara, and in some of the books, they call her Marie. So we decided, and you will hear, that we are naming our character Clara Marie. That way, you know, no matter which book you read, that it's the same person.
Right. I think that's so exciting, all of the things that you've put thought into to make this a really inclusive kind of experience that, you know, the parents will see, will hear the music that they love and recognize, you know, the moments that are their favorite. But like you were saying, Barbara, you know, the children that are coming get this really cool first exposure. So, what are some of the ways that you really invite kids in from the beginning?
Well, the first thing that happens is the kids are welcomed by Clara Marie's mother and by her uncle, Herr Drosselmeyer, her godfather. And that right away, I hope, gives the kids a feeling that they are part of the story because they are been invited to the party. And when we did the show the very first time in the theater, we invited everybody to get dressed up if they wanted to. And of course, most of the children did, which was wonderful. And they were welcomed in and seated. And what we're doing is going to the camera and welcoming everybody into this. And then once they are welcomed, Herr Drosselmeyer starts playing with them. He shows them puppets because he's a puppet maker, and he plays with the puppets until Clara Marie comes in so excited that this is this beautiful party. And you see a beautiful Christmas tree in the background, and you see the beautiful costumes because, as we all know, the Nutcracker did not happen in the 21st century or even in the 20th century. It was really a 19th century piece. So we have these beautiful costumes that show us the era that we're in. And that's the beginning of how everybody comes in with beautiful music and excitement.
Well, I would love to hear more about Clara Marie. And I mean, Clara is such an iconic character. Even me as a kid who didn't really do ballet growing up, you know, I still felt like she was such an important character to look up to. So I would like to hear about your Clara Marie.
Well, I think it's our Clara Marie, don't you, Melissa? We created a Clara Marie that both of us felt was the kind of girl that we wanted to feature. Somebody feisty, somebody adventurous, somebody who was definitely in charge of herself. And when she's invited to go to the land of the sweets, she just gets right in there and goes. And Melissa, what was some of the other things that you were thinking about who she was going to be? Because what you wanted her to be physically is what the way I wrote her.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. I felt very strongly a classic Clara or Marie is often portrayed, sometimes even portrayed as a child. Sometimes a child actually plays Clara, but often in a nightgown and just kind of being brought place to place. And I thought, now is the time, if we are taking up the Nutcracker and showing what we would like the Nutcracker, how we would like next generations to experience the Nutcracker and experience the classic and experience the beauty of the classic, but also start to see themselves and a, a future in this story, then how do we give Clara Marie choice? How do we give her the adventurous spirit that someone who will go on a flying adventure would actually have? So if Clara Marie is making her choices, and if she is choosing to go on this adventure, and she is looking at the world that's being presented and deciding to go on an adventure, then the relationship between the prince and Clara Marie gets to also shift, which to me and to us was quite important. There's often in other versions of the Nutcracker, there is often kind of almost a romantic relationship between the Nutcracker prince and Clara Marie. And there is a coming of age thought in that I understand, but there's also a sweeping off and a prince will take you. And what if you just choose to go on your own? So that helped us shape Clara Marie into a powerful young woman who is excited to invite you into her party, who is excited to invite you into her world, and then is excited to explore with you and her friends. And it also beautifully shifts how the rest of the relationships in the show start to be seen and experienced.
Yes, and one of my favorite things is when Clara Marie is dancing with the prince, and the moves that she makes are rather surprising. Could you tell us about that, Melissa? Because I love that.
Sure. So there were some elements where we just chose, because we were choosing this shift for Clara Marie, that also meant that the classical gender relationship that happens in dance, where the woman is small and willowy and the man is strong and does all the lifting, there's two things that happen in that. Often the men are almost forced to disappear just for the beauty of the women. And there is also this idea that a woman isn't able to do the things that a man is able to do. So if we rid ourselves of those assumptions and we offer power and physicality to Clara Marie, then she and the prince start to find this equal ground. And then wonderful things can happen choreographically where they can depend on one another. So Clara Marie can take the prince's weight, and the prince can lift Clara Marie, and Clara Marie can lift the prince. And it just starts to shape a more equal relationship where they can trust one another, they can move forward and choose to move forward together, and they can go on an adventure and know that the other one has their back.
Yeah, and how much did you, as a choreographer, work with the dancers and the specific abilities of the dancers that you chose to work with in order to, make the most of their talents and explore some, because you've opened this door for new, exciting choreography. So how did you work with them to really explore those possibilities?
Um, so our Clara Marie is Claudia Lynn, and she is a ballet dancer, or has a past of being a ballet dancer as well as a contemporary dancer. And as a contemporary dancer, she's a very powerful body. Um, and so I knew that she had the skill to do these lifts that I was interested in and be able to take the weight necessary while also being able to handle the technical needs of actually dialing back into the ballet, because that was also something that was important to Barbara, that we were important to both of us, that we were presenting elements of the ballet that were true to the ballet, that the Sugar Plum Fairy solo is choreography that is danced by the Sugar Plum Fairy on stages in opera houses. Um, and then Corey, who plays the role of the Nutcracker and the Prince, is a dancer and a gymnast. And having the two of them be able to lift one another and trade positions and shift who was moving the other also meant that Corey can take up a lot of space in maybe not the most usual of ballet movement, but with a backflip. And it's not very often that you get to see a Nutcracker do a backflip.
I don't think I've ever seen it before. So, so if Claudia is, like doing these lifts and doing this challenging choreography, is that reflected in the costumes? Did that change your approach to what the characters needed to wear in this world to be able to do that kind of choreography?
So I think, it's a funny thing because for me, as we build worlds, as I start to know who the people are, I start to understand what they need in their clothing. And then as we're creating the choreography and as Barbara and I were creating the play of the ballet, and we were getting more and more clear on the strength of Clara Marie and the adventurous feeling in this girl, I felt like it was a good idea to move away from the classic nightgown, nightie, move away from the little girl dress and acknowledge the power of pockets. You can put things in your pockets. You can have a surprise handkerchief in your pocket. If you're going to go on an adventure, having pockets is a great idea. And if you're going to climb a tree, you probably want to wear pants. And you never know when you're going to need to climb a tree. And I think that that is kind of where the costuming for Clara Marie started to come from, this adventure idea that if she wasn't an adventurer, why would she say yes to going on this journey? She must be an adventurer. So
The other thing that I loved was that usually in the land of the sweets, in the ballet, the prince and Clara Marie are sitting at some sort of throne-ish situation, and other people are doing all the beautiful dancing. And of course, the most beautiful dancing is the dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. And in our version, Clara Marie gets to make that dance happen. She is crowned the Sugar Plum Fairy by the Dewdrop, and she actually is able to do the dance, and she's applauded for having been able to do that dance. So she is not just a watcher; she is a mover of the story, and she's a mover of all of the things that are happening. She's a part of, and I love that we did that and gave her even that kind of agency to become all the people in the story, and not just to be an observer, which lots of times the passiveness of girls, I think we absolutely did not want to have a passive girl, and this girl just is part of everything in the adventure. She takes over the adventure.
it's true. I actually asked a couple of children who their favorite character was in the Nutcracker. And even those that have fallen asleep during the Sugar Plum Fairy's dance still said that their favorite character or their character they would want to be was the Sugar Plum Fairy. And it started to feel very important that Clara becomes the Sugar Plum Fairy, because if we're telling a story of adventure and change and what is to come, then the idea of being able to take on this character in this role and perform for everyone and be this iconic, beautiful role felt very important.
But also, I think it was very important for Clara Marie to come back home. That after
Yes.
she had the adventure, she wanted to definitely come back home. So that's a kind of a story there for kids of, you can go on an adventure, you can become all sorts of different people, and then when you're done, go back home and enjoy the love and the warmth of family.
Yeah, she also chooses to go home. She's had a wonderful time. She's gotten to fly all over the place and see all sorts of wonderful things and have adventures with her friends. And then when she's sleepy, she decides it's time to go home.
I would love to talk about the travel in this piece because in such a short amount of time we go so many places. How did you work to achieve that? What kind of, traveling do they do on this adventure?
Well, one of the classic ways, there's a couple of classic ways that the Nutcracker is dealt with. And one of those is this idea of going to places in the world. Um, Something that doesn't sit quite right with me is that those places are often visually represented. So we have a cast that um, is from certain parts of the world. I mean, everyone has a background that is from a slightly different place, but we certainly don't have a cast that represents the entire world. And we can't pretend that we do. So we decided to allow the sound of the world to come into our Nutcracker. And so the sound of Spain is the sound of a flamenco dancer dancing. And we had a wonderful flamenco dancer, Zanix Barrera, actually record her palmas and steps all the way through the music of the Spanish track. And then we go to China, and in China, we experience a new year, the fireworks of a new year. And they, we created this playful moment that is a wonderful way, I think, to experience the music of tea. Sometimes it's called China, sometimes it's called tea. We felt like we would embrace the Chinese New Year and Lunar New Year. And then we go to a land that is extremely cold. You can hear the cold winds, and the dancers are shivering, and we've clearly gotten to a place that's very cold. And to warm themselves up, they dance. And we get to clap along with them. We get to feel that energy, and everything starts to rev up until we land in Morocco, where there is floating fabric, and as if tents are coming down and around us, and the sound of a marketplace in Morocco. And it's just a little more relaxed and a little more calm, and brings us back down into the land of the sweets.
Where we need the children.
Yes.
The flowers have disappeared. Excuse me. And we need the children to become the flowers. And we invite the audience to do that, and they need to know how to do that. And so our dancers become the teachers. So do you want to talk about that, Melissa?
Sure. So the Waltz of the Flowers is one of these iconic moments in the Nutcracker. And we wanted to bring in, like I said before, we wanted to bring in elements of the classical ballet, but we also wanted to get children moving and dancing themselves. And this was a perfect opportunity to teach a basic series of movements, a basic series of balletic movements, actual ballet steps that we put together, that when the children do them, they are dancing a child's version of the Waltz of the Flowers. They have a balance, they have their hands in fifth, they do beautiful turns, they do tendus to the side, their feet are in first position, and we tell them all of these things so that they know what it is that they're doing. And we know that there are some in the audience who already take ballet classes. So we know that they know that we are saying the correct words. And then together, everyone dances. And it's every single show. And I think that in these performances, it will be the same. We will have people dancing on the other side of the camera. We'll have children dancing in their homes. The performers do such a wonderful job of directly engaging and teaching these steps. They're so clear. And then everyone gets to dance them together. The Prince and Clara Marie continue to dance with the children. And then the Dewdrop Fairy and Cavalier do just a little bit more of a complicated Waltz of the Flowers behind them. So we get to see both at the same time, which is quite wonderful.
And the children really have gone on this adventure with our dancers and have become part of the show. And without them, the show would not have been able to continue, which is a lovely thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you both talked so much about how important it is that Clara was strong and had choices and was adventurous. And I would love to hear, Barbara, why, as a playwright and as the artistic director and founder of New York City Children's Theater, why it's so important to you to really thoughtfully create protagonists for the children of New York and now maybe for the show even beyond that who will come to see them.
Well, I think that a lot of times I have heard that people write shows for boys because girls will come to shows about boys, but boys won't go to shows that are about girls. And I said, you know what? I'm going to test that. I don't think that's so. I think if you have a strong girl and an exciting story, the boys will come. And we always try to definitely have a boy in our shows as well. But having the protagonist being a girl, that message of you can do it, you can be strong, you can be the one that is in charge. I think that a boy growing up gets that message from the moment they're born. And girls have to be reminded in our society that they can do, they can be. Now I think it's less that way. I think girls today have role models that they can look up to, women that are in high positions, thank goodness, which is wonderful. But it's still, there's still that sense of the glass ceiling for a girl, the difficulty of getting the same pay as a man, getting the recognition. If a woman is aggressive, they're considered to be bossy. If a man is aggressive, they're considered to be on top of everything. So it's important to start from the beginning to show girls that they can be what they want to be. And that's really what it is. If you want to be a mom, you can be a mom. If you want to be the head of an organization, you can be the head of an organization. You can do what it is that you feel you should do. And so I started looking, not always, because of course we want to have a balance of the shows that we do. But as I was looking at our history, I realized that one of the very first shows that we did 24, 25 years ago when we started was called Little Kit. And it was about a girl who was an orphan who runs away from the orphanage to join a flea circus. And she becomes a very important part of it, and she saves it. And I guess I was doing brave little girls, adventurous little girls from the beginning, up to a couple of years ago when we did Interstellar Cinderella, which was a telling of the Cinderella story in which Cinderella does not marry the prince, although he proposes, he wants to. She said, no, I don't think I want to marry you. I would like to be your engineer, your chief engineer, if that's all right with you. And so that's exactly what happens. And so those kinds of switches are the things that I think send the message that you don't have to play the traditional roles. You can play the role that you feel you want to play in life. And it's not only just important to me, it's important to everybody in our organization, whether they're female or Andrew Frank, our executive director, is one of the most pro-feminist men that I know. And he is totally, totally with that program. So it's always exciting when, in fact, one of the shows that he's going to be doing now is about a rock climber, a girl rock climber. So it's very important to all of us on our staff that we show both male and female characters and boys and girls as can-do, strong people.
It's also really inspiring. It's wonderful to hear you tell that whole history of all of that, Barbara. I knew it, but I love hearing it. It's also really inspiring because I feel like in the characters that we've created in My First Nutcracker, from from Mother to Fritz to um, Clara Marie and Drosselmeyer, and all of the characters that take on this world have the ability to be, they could be one note characters. They could be, this is how they are, and just be what you see. Or they can be deeper, slightly more complicated, a little bit more complex, so that we believe that they are people that we can interact with. And I feel like we've accomplished that. Being back in rehearsal right now, being able to talk to them about why they're doing things and how these things are happening, I realized that it's a story of a little girl who gets a doll that she adores. And the doll is a soldier, and our Nutcracker is this fantastic pink Nutcracker. Um, and he's super sparkly and wonderful. But he's a soldier.
Mhm.
And this ability for this little girl to be both beautiful and strong and fly through the sky with the snowflakes and be able to lift the prince when necessary. This ability to find the balance feels like the equality conversation that is so necessary, and not necessarily the taking on of everything, but the ability to share, and the ability to share space, and the ability to share who is looking for something and who finds it, and how do you ask for help. If you don't know how to fly, it's okay to ask for help to learn how to fly. And then once you learn how to fly, you can lead others with you.
That is, I think, one of the inspiring messages that we give in all the plays and musicals and dance productions that New York City Children's Theater does. You can ask for help, and then you can take off and do it on your own. Whether you're a boy or a girl or whoever you are, it's you can be inspired. And you can start a conversation that lasts beyond the show. You and your parents have enough things happening that you can talk about together, and enough of a message that resonates both with children and with parents, of how children should be able, how strong children should feel and be, and how helpful it is to have beautiful, loving parents to help them do it.
Mm. Something that I remember that was one of my favorite parts of the experience of seeing the show in theaters last year was when the kids are invited to become the flowers. It didn't matter what kid was in the audience, all of the kids were ready and excited to dance, which is so beautiful. And I think, something so special about this show. Um, and I remember, didn't we have some videos last year of kids who then went home and did the Nutcracker again in their living rooms?
Really? Oh, that's wonderful. I don't think I knew about those. That's amazing.
Oh, and yeah, and one of my favorites was when I would come to visit the production when we were doing it for a school. And at first, you would see the boys in the audience going, nah, I'm not going to do this. And then when they're invited, by the time they're invited to dance, every single boy got up there, and every single boy did all of the positions, and did it seriously, and did it with happiness to be doing it. It wasn't just a girl thing. It was a thing for everybody to participate in. And I just got such a kick out of that change in the way the boys looked at it and how happy they were to be part of this world.
Yeah, I think it just goes to show how transformative theater and dance can be. So what are you most excited about for sharing the show again in December?
Oh, I'm so excited to, I mean, I would love it if people were willing to share with us what happens in their homes as they're watching this show. We are working on ways that we're going to be communicating through the screen to be sure that the show and the experience is as engaging as in a live theater experience. Um, I have some excitement over some new costume elements that will be happening. So just from a performance standpoint, I'm excited about those. Um, yeah, I feel like the show is been wonderful to see come back into the dancers' bodies and how they own who they are as they're performing it. Um, and to invite in a new actor to play the role of mother. Um, and she's just done an amazing job of taking on all of the roles that she has to play. And yeah, I just feel like there's such a positive energy happening that I am excited to see translate beyond the performance wall, you know.
When we do the shows for the schools, very, very often the teacher has the kids send us back a package of poems, stories, pictures, paintings that the kids do when, as a result of having seen our shows. And if it was possible to invite our audience to do that, because they're not there physically, even though we make them there by the way we interact with the camera. I would be so pleased if we could get back some feedback from the audience, from the kids, in the shape of a picture of what they saw, or a little poem, or just a little story of what something meant to them. So if we get back some things and we're able to put it on our website to show that this did go through the camera and to the kids and landed, and they give us back something, that would thrill me. And I hope that some of that can happen. So I'm inviting you, I'm shamelessly inviting you, as we talk to you before the show, to please send us some recognition of what came to you from us for this show, so that we can celebrate you and celebrate the success of our endeavor.
We are working very hard. I mean, it's not hard. It's really fun. But we're we're spending um, time paying attention to how things translate and how these moments, these teaching moments will translate, and how the more mysterious moments of the show will translate, and how the surprising elements of the show translate. So finding out how that affects children and what they get out of it would be so amazing.
Right. Well, I think it's really exciting that there will be things that are familiar for people who saw my first Nutcracker last year and really loved it, but that there will also be some new surprises and some things.
Mhm. There will be some new surprises. There will be, we were actually talking about it in rehearsal today. There will be ways that we feel like it is what was experienced in the theater, but it is being experienced. How do I say this? There is a surprising element that happens when things pop out at you in the theater, right? Ways that in the live performance that someone comes through a door and you don't expect them to come through the door, or they end up behind the audience and you don't expect them to be behind the audience. And so we're actually paying attention to those moments to see how we can keep that feeling of surprise and across the audience conversation in the framing that we're in now. It's a wonderful challenge, and I'm excited to hear how everyone feels about it.
Well, I certainly can't wait to see where this lands and all of the things that you come up with. And I just want to thank you both so much. And I'm sure our community thanks you as well for sharing all of these wonderful insights about your process and what we can expect very soon.
Well, I want to
Thank you,
thank
Sarah.
all of you out there because you make it possible for us to do this extremely fun, wonderful, amazing work that we do for you. So thank you for being there and thank you for sharing with us what we love.
Thank you.